Hello everybody. Today we learn writing. In this class we learn writing an essay. But in the previous one we have already learned some basic characteristic features of writing an essay. And now today we move on to the second part. Today we learn how to write different kinds of essay. Within an hour's we can learn several kinds, totally 7 kinds of essay. But first of all, I'd like to remind you of the structures of an essay. It is very necessary for you to know the main structures of an essay. And usually it is rather long, so and also it is more complicated than writing a paragraph. In writing a paragraph we have 33 parts, but in writing an essay we also have to pay attention to 3 parts. Now, usually in writing an essay we have a title and also 3 parts. They are introduction, body, and conclusion. But introduction we have to carry out writing a hook sentence, but you should know that this sentence is optional. So we can see that it is optional because sometimes we need a hook sentence, sometimes we don't need. But it is better for you to have a hook sentence. Why? A hook sentence can draw the reader's attention. Whenever we have a hook sentence, the reader will pay more attention to your writing. And also the content. In some cases, a hook sentence may create curiosity among readers. And now the next thing in the introduction, we have the general statement. In this part of the essay, you have to write several statements. It means that you have to write several sentences. They talk about the characteristic feature, the main thing, the general things about the topic that you are going to discuss. And the most important thing in the introduction here, that is thesis statement. So what is thesis statement? In the previous class we have already learned the basic things about thesis statement. Actually, the thesis statement is a complete sentence. This complete sentence gives us the topics we are going to discuss and also the boundary or the limitation that we can only discuss the things within a limitation or the boundary. And also the thesis statement is the sentence that shows the attitude of the writer. It means that when you write the thesis statement, you have to show your views. So you say your attitude, your viewpoint, whether you are for or you are against a matter or a problem. So, and the next part, this is called body. In the body, we may have several paragraphs. The number of paragraphs depend on the structures of the thesis statement. You should know that each paragraph should contain one main idea. So the number of paragraphs in the body depends on the number of ideas that you may mention in the thesis statement. Or it may be overt, or it may be hidden. But the reader has to make, or the writer has to make a guess. The structures of a paragraph depend on the kind of paragraph you are going to write. Yeah, but usually there are three parts in writing a paragraph. We have a topic sentence, supporting sentences, and concluding sentence. Yeah, usually we have three parts of a paragraph. They are all the same. I repeat, the structures of a paragraph should be topic sentence, supporting sentences, concluding sentence. In some cases, we don't need to write, especially the concluding sentence in the paragraph, the body. Yeah, in the body paragraph. In some time, we can need to write a concluding sentence. Yeah, and the next part, that is called conclusion. There are several ways to write a conclusion or concluding paragraph. Yeah, the conclusion should be a paragraph. This paragraph can be written in some way, in several ways. The first way, that is a summary of the main idea. You have to make a summary. And the second way, that you have to collect the number of the main idea and you group them together. And the next, you may give further discussion. Yeah, you may give some comment about the main ideas. And the third way, that you may rewrite the thesis statement. Yeah, and of course, you have to use another structures in order to rewrite the thesis statement. You shouldn't, or you are not allowed to copy the thesis statement. Yeah, so that is the things about the outlines of an essay, and I'd like to remind you of this before going into detail when you learn how to write the other kinds of essay. And now we move on to the next. Yeah, the next slide. Now, first of all, we learn how to write a process essay. And of course, the structures of writing an essay is similar to different kinds of essay. But in each kind of essay, there is a special things or several characteristic features of the model. And so, what is a process essay? A process essay is a series of actions that lead to an expected end. A process essay is written to encourage the reader's natural curiosity. There are two types of process analysis essays. The first kind is instructing or directing the reader for doing something. And the second kind, that is the explaining or analyzing something for the reader to understand. When writing an essay of this kind, you should remember too. Now, you have to decide or determine how many steps, the number of steps or the number of period the process involves. You have to identify the kind of step or stages the things may happen. And then later on, you have to use the time order. Of course, you have to envision what the reader does not know, or to focus on your explanation. You can warn the reader of difficulties and maybe some obstacles in the process. Why and when. And then you have to refer to the effects that the step will lead to. You may mention the causes and effect of each kind or each stage or each step. So, what about the structures of the process essay? Actually, it also contains the three parts: the introduction and the body and conclusion. Now the first part, the introduction. In the introduction of this kind of essay, you have to tell what the process is. It means that is the definition. You may mention the name. Yeah. You also mention in what situation it is used and why it is important. Now, read the following introduction for the essay. Yeah. How to make people hate you. Yeah. For example, making people hate you is not very hard. With some determination, you can learn a few tricks and become an expert. Then you have a time you want to be alone. Do all things you want to do by yourself. Of course, if you would like to have an opposite effect on people, this advice can be a guide to what you should avoid in your relationship with other people. Yeah, that is an example of the introduction. So, what about the body? In the body, you might arrange a number of paragraphs, but it depends on your intention. The body should clearly and logically is to make sure that the directions are complete and specific so that someone who is unfamiliar with the process will be able to perform it successfully. To this end, give the parts of the process in an order by importance, location, from simple to complex, from known to unknown, and of time of which is the most important times of order. It presents what happened first and second. Yeah, so you should be careful of this. Yeah. So try to make the essay lively by using amusing or dramatic incident, but easily it is a surprising fact. Now we move on to the conclusion. Yeah. So how can we write the conclusion of the process essay? Yeah, it is often concerned with the result of the process. Yeah, we have to refer to the result. And usually, you may rewrite the way or the step in the process essay. It is better for you. And you may try to practice writing this at home for the process essay, especially when we may choose one of the two topics here. For example, we may to write how to avoid trouble with your neighbor. The second topic will say how to choose a car, how to choose a motorbike. You may do the topic like how to stay in good health, or how to choose a mate. So when you practice writing this, just think of the thing you should do first and the thing you should do next or after. And so that is the kind of the process essay. Now we move on to the next kind, that is called example essay. In writing an example essay, to prove a point, the number of examples you use depends on the topic. For example, if you were asked to write about the difficulties in writing in English, you would develop the topic with a number of examples. In this case, examples are the aspect of the problems the writer meets in writing. Now we also have three parts. The introduction first. Like the other written essay, an example essay begins with the first paragraph that has a strong thesis statement. You also, when you write a in the introduction, you have to present some general statement, and also you have to mention the thesis statement. Yeah, it is a must for you to write a thesis statement. And also, you have to know that a thesis is the key opinion and the point, the argument on the generalization of an essay. What about the body? The body of a paragraph essay will develop each aspect of the thesis in the separate paper. Separate paragraph or set of paragraphs. The number of the paragraph depends on the kind of idea, and for each kind of idea, you should try to carry out it within an example. Yeah, another way we say is that you mention one example for each kind of idea. And another thing you have to bear in mind that each development paragraph includes the evidence, example, to support the topic sentence, and all the body will include evidence and example presented in different paragraphs. And in order to select a range of your example, it is really what you have to consider. Easily the example and details of an expository essay. Yeah, this is organized according to time, familiarity, importance, and therefore in an example essay, the example are essentially arranged in the same order. For varieties, you select a keyword, phrase, or idea from the previous paragraph to refer back to its main idea, and insert in the beginning sentence of the next paragraph before introducing the main idea that paragraph. And also, you have to write the conclusion. In the example essay, you have to end with a strong conclusion paragraph that provides insight of the thesis statement. In some cases, you may rewrite the thesis statement in another structure. And you should know that the conclusion is used to wrap up your argument by stating what your essay has shown. And now the next kind, we have a comparison and contrast essay. Making comparison and contrast is the common method of exposition. We need to compare and contrast two things, item, people, like nature, to determine the superiorities of one thing over the other, to explain something unknown on the basis of something known, to show the differences or similarities, advantages or disadvantages of one thing compared with another, etc. In a comparison and contrast essay, you have to analyze the similarities. And of course, in a contrast essay, you have to emphasize the differences. So for the comparison and contrast essay, you try to find out the similarities and the differences of the matter. Yeah, when I compare the two things, two objects, even two topics. And so when you write an essay, you should do the following thing. Now, when you choose the topic, you may choose the new one, but you have to restrict the point of comparison to 3 points. Why? Because of each point, you should mention them each in a paragraph. Maybe in some time you may try to develop 4 main ideas in the 4 paragraphs. And also you have to decide on the emphasis either on the comparison and contrast. Each is necessary for you to use the transition, like unlike, compared with, also to likewise, similarly, in the same way. There are many more connecting words and adverbs. Yeah, I think that it is better for you to write to use the connectors. And there are two kinds of the organizational pattern. The first kind of the comparison and contrast essay, that is a block pattern. Yeah. It means that you have to arrange the number of ideas in one block. Yeah. And the first block touches upon the differences. When you write this kind of essay, we have you may write the first block on the differences. Yeah. And the second block is on the similarity, all of them. Yeah, I repeat, when we write a comparison and contrast essay, you have to mention all the things in one block, maybe several paragraphs about differences. And you may mention several paragraphs on the similarity. So, they are called block arrangement of idea or block pattern. And the second way, it means that you may write all the things in the first block that it contains information about the first subject. In the second block, you may write the second matter, etc. And of course, in the introduction also, you may have to write the thesis statement. It will tell the reader if your purpose is to discuss the similarities and also differences of the two subjects. So I repeat, in the body, when you write a block, so you may have two blocks. Block A for differences, block B for similarities. Yeah, another way is that you may say block A, that's for the first matter. Yeah, and the second one will block B. It is for the second subject. Yeah. And now the second point, the second way of writing a comparison and contrast essay, that is a point by point pattern. It means that you go point by point. You may have several ideas. So you move from this idea to another idea. So you continue to move from one to the next. You both write the similarities or the difference between the two subjects. So you move from one to one idea. So it is called a point by point pattern. So you may have so you have totally two kinds of the way of the method how to write a comparison and contrast essay. Yeah, that's also about it. And now we move on to cause and effect essay. And the next kind of writing an essay here. When the problem arises, we use this method to reasoning to figure out the causes for it, and also to analyze or predict the result or effect. Writing a cause and effect essay, we may want to analyze causes and effects to answer the question, why does it happen, or why did it happen, or what happens, or what happened as a result or because of this. And also in writing a cause and effect essay, we may have several kinds of pattern. We also have a block pattern, a block organization. The block organization may vary. It means that we may have several ways to write the essay in the kinds of block. The cause essay may discuss one effect in the introduction and then all the causes as a block in the body. In an effect essay, one cause is mentioned in the introduction and all the effects are discussed in the body. And also in a cause and effect essay, all causes are discussed in one block, and then all the other effects on the result are mentioned together as a block. In the third case, before discussing the causes and effects of the event, in your thesis statement, you should say clearly the thing that you are going to discuss, or you are discussing the causes and the effects by using the term cause or effect. For example, watching too much TV is one of the major sociologist issues of this century, which has many effects of the psychology and physiology of the people. And now we have a look at or listen to the first pattern that is called a block pattern. You may mention the effect, something about the effect first, and then you may mention the multiple causes, a lot of causes. It means that from one effect, you have different causes. And also from one cause, you may have different effects, and vice versa. For example, we have the effect air pollution. So we may try to find out a lot of causes related to air pollution. For example, we may have some causes like this: exhaust gases from cars, uncontrolled factory gases, burning of coal for heating. And now we also have one cause, but we have different effects. Now, for example, we have the cause reduce work hours, but the effects may have less income, employers are irritated, more time for family and friends. So I repeat, one cause may have different effects, and one effect may have the different causes. And now we move on to the next. And also we may have a lot of causes may lead to a lot of effects. And that is called cause and effects pattern, a block pattern. And now we move on to chain organization. So what is it? It is a complicated pattern. It may be used to discuss either the first cause going with the defects in one paragraph, and the second cause with its effects in another. The first cause and its effects, and the effect become a second cause that lead to some effects. And the development of the chain relationship. This pattern or event happen in a chain. A causal chain or domino, we can call this a domino effect. So we say the first cause, I repeat that, the first cause will lead to the effect, and this effect become the cause, and this cause become will lead to another effect, and also this effect becomes another cause, etc. Now notice that when you use a causal analysis, you must avoid oversimplification, and keep in mind that effect may be the consequence of two or more causes or a train of causes. And now we move on to the next. Also in cause and effect essay, in your development paragraph, remember to back up your thesis with a relevant and sufficient detail. Those are organized by order of time. That is the arrangement. I think it is important for you to make use of the order of time by using first, second, third, next, then, and then after that, etc. You have to use the connecting words or connecting adverbs. Now next, we may arrange the idea in the order is important. You may arrange the least important first, and then move on to the most important one, and vice versa. And also you have to mention the idea in the order of category, maybe from general thing to specific, and maybe from specific thing to general things or methods. When strengthening your essay, use the supporting evidence, define terms, artifacts, and statistics to provide example, anecdote, or personal observation that support your ideas. In order to achieve a coherence in your writing, for the reader to follow your idea easily, you should use a transition to link them together. However, overuse transition causes a traffic jam, so they should be avoided. Maybe you have to use some of them. For example, I may mention some kind of thing that you may take advantage to you. For example, now, because of course it shows the relationship between the causes and effect. Yeah, because since because of, as a result or consequence, therefore, to result from, to result in, to cause something, to have an effect on, to have an influence on. Now, next. The next kind of essay, that is called definition essay. So, what is it? Definition essay that answer the question, what is? What is like? To approach the term with more thoroughness and spirit than the efficient. Short dictionary definition has a definition essay breaks the subject into parts that can be clearly understood. What is the most important before writing to select the subject carefully before, because a definition essay personal by nature. Therefore, a term or a subject that you know well will make it easy for you to clarify, to provide specific example to illustrate your definition. So, in the structures of an essay, we also have the three parts: introduction, body, and conclusion. And for the introduction, before you give the thesis statement, you have to provide some background about the term, saying why and how it is important to define the term. You can also use the traditional or dictionary definition as the basis for your definition. Your definition or thesis statement states what is being defined. And of course, in the body, I have to deal with the main part. In this you have to, you may give some several definition, and each definition should be in one paragraph. Usually we have 3 paragraphs in the body, each dealing with one of the parts of your definition. The structures of a definition essay can be seen as follows. Now, one part of your definition of the subject, example to illustrate the point, analysis of how the example illustrates the point. And now we move on to the next. In the body, you try to choose the typical aspect that makes the definition satisfying, interesting, avoiding shallow aspect of the subject. And the order of presenting ideas should be clear and logical. Yeah, so how can we make it clear and logical? You have to depend on the level of importance or the location. If necessary, you may try to enrich the possession of the term through specific analysis by either mentioning the physical property, its uses, or mentioning its effects on people history. Remember that when possible, illustrate your argument with specific examples, facts, incidents. What about conclusion? In conclusion, you have to review your definition, the main point, by giving a summary of the point that have been mentioned above, or give us some kind of comment that give the writing a sense of completeness. Yeah, and now we move on to the next kind of essay. They are called classification essay. We can say that it is rather difficult for it to clarify the concept of classification. Now, division and classification are a means of establishing order among things, having some common characteristics. Division and classification are a filling system that aim to explain the relationship and to make the information comprehensible, handy, easy to communicate. They have in common that they relate general, domain, classes or subclasses. They are so closely associated, being in the same opposite side of the same coin, that they are often considered together under the single heading of classification. Classification and division is a common pattern of composition to analyze the topic or subject by breaking something down into the parts. Yeah, so it is called division. And also you have to study the relationship of the parts of determine the natures of the part. Yeah, it is called classification. The classification essay is one of the main skill demanded not just for academic writing in particular, but also for living life in general. The skill to divide things into parts and to describe different parts that make up the whole thing. So before writing a classification essay, you should identify the subjects and study it thoroughly by taking into the consideration of all the categories. Afterwards, based on the principle, you sort out the essential subclasses or category. Usually you may write 3 or 4 categories, those are enough. Because with more category or more subclasses, you have to write more. So within an essay, I think you should try to write only 2 or 3 or 4. Now, what about the classification structure? The structures of a classification essay is built on the number of categories of the topic. Now, in the introduction, the basic part of the introduction is the thesis statement. It reveals the topic according to a certain principle of classification. Each is divided into categories. The number of categories can be many, but it should be confined. What about the body? The body of a classification essay name and discusses the general characteristics of the members of each category by answering the question, what are they like? What are the examples of each? The different category of the topic, which has presented one after another, but must follow one organizing principle and be arranged easily from the least important to the most important. Remember that in a classification essay, your task is not to name the category of the topic only, but also to analyze each category by listing its basic features. And what about the conclusion? The conclusion of the that is a summary of the main category, and another way we can try to write the the thesis statement. And now the next guy, that is called argumentative essay. You may probably know more about the argumentative than you realize. You have written to a parent or someone to pocket money, to a personnel officer of a business for a job, to lover, to pet up a quarrel. You have a written argumentation. In other words, you are proposed giving reason based on the relevant facts and ideas. Does someone accept your views on a given subject? Such a proposal in argumentation is termed proposition. That is a statement for or against something that can be shown to be true or false. In the argumentative essay, you have to mention the two aspects that are for or against. In another word, we say pro or cons. The aim of this is to convince or persuade the reader to agree with the writer's stand or viewpoint on a controversial or debatable issue, and to take a recommended action. It uses the expository techniques. We have an explanation, analysis, to achieve agreement or to effect a change in a point of view, or to influence an action. And next, in order to write an effects argument essay or argumentative essay, you should take into consideration the following. Now, select the topic you feel strongly about. It means that you have to try to find down the clear opinion. You have to try to get the logical reasoning, the logical facts. You try to find out the reasonable explanation and reliable opinion. And next, you have to take a position of the issue, whether you are for or you are against. An essay can become an argument when it takes a position. So, when you write, you have to decide which side to the issue you stand on. And you may be negative or you may be positive. It depends. Now, if possible, state your opponent's position. You should show your audience that the reader, each is the reader. Why? your opponent holds that position and what reason you think your opponent might choose to support his or her opinion. And of course you have to analyze your opponent's position. This will help the reader understand your viewpoint better and have you construct some more persuasive argument. And what about the background information? It is the basic information for the topic that about topic of the audience understand the person being argued better. This information can be part of the introductory paragraph or in a series paragraph. Now next. What about refutation? It can be thought as an opposing opinion which is supported to be held by readers of an essay. When a constructive view is put forward, it is usually supported by counter-argument. This is opposing argument. Refutation and counter-argument create a contrast or opposition which are highlighted by reasoning and evidence. Since there are two sides to the issue. In writing an argument essay, refutation is a counter-argument. They are easily introduced by one of the following transitions. However, in spite of, or sometimes we may use the word although, although, but after though, although, you have to use a clause. Now next, it depends on how many points the writer wishes to address. The refutation can take from one or more one paragraph located in or after the introductory paragraph. And one other thing you have to bear in mind that argument what the writer put forward to. It depends on the viewpoints of the writer. In other words, developing the writer's own argument is the main task you have to writers. And okay, sorry, there are some mistakes, so now I can now continue. The argument, I repeat. In writing an argumentative essay, you have to try to arrange the argument. Those arguments that the writer put forward to defend his or her view. In other words, developing the writer's own argument is the main task. You as the writer, you have to do. You have to defend your position convincingly with different methods of development. So what are the methods here? You might try to make use of definition, comparison and contrast, cause and effect, classification. Example. So what about the main part of an argument essay? In writing an argumentative essay, you have also three parts: introduction, body, and conclusion. So, but in the main part, in the introduction, you have to state your opinion. You have to present that you belong to the side of the issue that you have chosen. And also, it is important for you to show your viewpoint, whether you are for or against. Now, next, in the development. The body of the essay always try to show the writer's argument. And that is the main part. Each type of reason or evidence usually consists of general statement, backed up with the specific detail or example which are arranged maybe from the most familiar or to least familiar, from the unknown to unknown. Now, for in the writing an argumentative essay, you especially in logical reasoning, you try to avoid common mistake that may happen in the misuse of opinion and facts. Remember to support your opinion with facts and specific evidence. It is better for you. And next, we have some kind of argument that we try to give false authority or association. Try to avoid this and try to avoid overgeneralization. That is not good at all. And try to avoid circular argument. Okay. And also try to avoid either or argument. It is really bad. And also next, try to avoid inadequate evidence. What about the conclusion? In the conclusion, the concluding paragraph, you have to show the thing, of course, in summary, only the main point, and try to repeat your viewpoint. And argumentative essay vary in structure from one subject to another. We may have some kind of patterns. For example, in the first part, that is introduction, you may present the refutation or some counter argument. And then in the development, you may try to develop the weak case argument, and then the stronger argument, and then the strongest argument. And also we move on to conclusion. For the second pattern, in the introduction, you may give some background information, the thesis statement, and you have to show your position, your attitude. In the development, you may mention the refutation or some counter argument, and then in the next paragraph, you may mention different kinds of argument that you may follow. And next, the pattern 3. In the introduction, you also hook the reader with an intriguing beginning, but you should show your position or opinion about the topic. And in the development also have the weakest and strongest one. But in this part, you have to mention the refutation and counter argument. And we move on to conclusion. For pattern 4, in the pattern 4, we have the same way of writing an introduction. That is called showing your position or viewpoint. But in the development, you develop only refutation. But later on, you give a strong argument. And the final one, the final kind of essay, that is called evaluation essay. Evaluating is something you do every day. From small thing, whether that purchase is expensive in shopping or zero thing. Such as whether particular university is a good place for your continuing education, or whether a particular job will be right for you. And there may be some guidelines, something for you to write an evaluation essay. Now, evaluation essay is the basic to thinking and learning as well as to writing. As you can compose your evaluation essay, keep in mind the standard you use in everyday life and apply those to your essay. The criteria that you use for evaluating have the commonality of value, quality, importance, or words. Supposingly, you want to rent an apartment, and those in about writing. First, you probably will decide on your needs and how much money you can spend. Also, we have some kind of standard in making thing or making judgment. We may have internal and external. External, internal judgment based on the knowledge, expertise, and experience. External judgment are based on what you can see or observe. And next, for the structures of an evaluation essay, we have several kind of pattern. And now we move on the first one. We also have introduction, but in this part, you have to give the purpose of evaluation or the overall value you find. In the body, you have to mention the standard and also mention the analysis of some comparison and contrast. And the next thing, you may give an interpretation and some judgment. And then we move on to conclusion. For the pattern 2, in the introduction, you shall mention the purpose of the evaluation or the overall value you find. But in the body, you have to describe the first standard. And then you describe another important thing, another important part, or another standard. And in the next part, you shall mention the third, another important thing, another standard. Okay, and also you can move on to conclusion. And in order to write an essay well, I can give you very short pieces of advice. Study when before you write. Try, especially pre-writing stages, try to brainstorm all the things that you know in one topic by putting questions or asking questions. And then you have to determine the standard you might use to judge the topic. And also, it is important for you to choose or to select information. And the next thing, you have to organize the information. So try to arrange your information piece by piece. And also you compare some point because you have in the rank of standard, and you might arrange the thing for the most important thing or the most interesting thing. And also remember that you have to draft. Okay, try to draft. And you can rewrite thing, you write, rewrite, editing again and again until you have the complete piece of writing. So because the time is short, yeah. And now I'd like to say goodbye to you all. Thank you for listening to me. For anything that you don't understand, just put question on the forum. I will try to give you some more explanation. Okay, thank you, son again. Goodbye.